All right, today we're going on a journey to the absolute edges of what it means to be human. We're going to explore the most intense, the most profound moments of our lives, from that first biological spark all the way to the final question. And that's really the big question, isn't it? We're not just looking at the 9 to 5. No, we're pushing the boundaries to understand the highest peaks of pleasure, the deepest pits of pain, and all the bizarre, incredible moments in between that really make us who we are.
So where else could we possibly start but at the very, very beginning? We're kicking things off with that fundamental biological drive that keeps our species going, the orgasm. You can think of it as evolution's natural high, a moment of just pure neuromuscular euphoria.
But, our bodies don't all experience this the same way. For men, it's typically this single, massive event, and it's followed by a mandatory cooldown, what scientists call a refractory period. Women, on the other hand, they don't have that biological downtime, which makes multiple orgasms a possibility. But for both, the brain's reward system is absolutely flooded with chemicals, creating a rush so intense it's actually been compared to heroin.
And for men, this all leads to a moment called ejaculatory inevitability. I mean, what a great term, right? It's that exact point of no return when the body just completely takes the wheel. Your pulse is racing, muscles are contracting, and there is literally no turning back. It's just biology at its most powerful, unstoppable force.
Okay, so that's how you make one life. But what if we took that idea and just scaled it up, way up? What would it actually take to create all of humanity, starting from just 2 people?
Just try to imagine that. 2 survivors, let's call them Aiden and Ellie, and they're on an otherwise empty planet Earth. I know, it sounds like something out of a myth, but scientifically, it's a huge problem. See, with only 2 sets of DNA, they're facing what's called a severe genetic bottleneck, and the consequences for humanity's future, well, they could be devastating. And trust me, history gives us some pretty stark warnings about this. Take European royalty, like the Spanish Habsburgs. They kept marrying relatives to keep the bloodline pure, and it led to some serious genetic problems, like the infamous Habsburg jaw. Or in Thailand, King Chulalongkorn had many children with his own half-sisters, and tragically, a massive number of them didn't even survive infancy. A small gene pool just concentrates all the bad stuff.
But, hold on, it's not a total death sentence for the human race. As this quote gets at, genetics is really just a game of probability. It's kind of like shuffling a deck of cards. The odds are definitely stacked against our 2 survivors, but it's not statistically impossible. There's this tiny sliver of hope that, with some unbelievable luck, they could keep dealing a winning hand, generation after generation.
And yet, here's the reality check. Scientists actually did the math. To create a healthy, diverse, and sustainable population, to really repopulate a planet the right way, you'd ideally need 98 unrelated people. So for our Aiden and Ellie to pull it off, they wouldn't just need a little bit of luck. They'd need to hit the genetic lottery again and again and again. Okay, so we've looked at the bare bones basics of survival. Now let's pivot to what makes that survival actually worthwhile, the celebration of it all. I mean, humanity isn't just about making more humans. It's about experiencing the world in all its rich, indulgent, and sometimes pretty wild glory.
And who knew how to celebrate better than the ancient Greeks? Seriously, a symposium wasn't just a party, it was a performance. It would start out all formal, dinner, compliments to the host. Then a master of the party was chosen to set the rules. From there, it just escalated. Drinking games, musicians, deep philosophical debates over watered-down wine, and it all ended with the Komos, basically a drunken parade through the streets. A perfect mix of high-minded talk and pure fun.
And of course, for a long, long time, we humans have used a little something extra to enhance the experience. The cannabis plant is a perfect example. It has hundreds of active compounds, but the 2 big ones you hear about are THC and CBD. THC is what gives you the high. It revs up your neural activity, making colors seem brighter, sounds richer. CBD, on the other hand, does the opposite. It has a calming effect, and it often eases anxiety by latching onto different receptors in the brain.
All right, buckle up because we're about to take a hard left turn. We're going from the highest highs of sensation and plummeting straight down to the absolute lows. We're now in the territory of pure survival, where pain and fear become your entire world.
So consider a meticulously planned escape. When the drug lord El Chapo broke out of prison, his tunnel wasn't just some hole in the ground. No, this thing was an engineering marvel. It had reinforced walls, a ventilation system, even a motorcycle on rails for a fast getaway. They even made it just tall enough so the boss wouldn't have to bend over. It's this weirdly calculated, almost comfortable vision of survival.
But let's be real. Survival is rarely that comfortable. That calculated escape is in brutal contrast to the raw, messy reality of a life-threatening injury. This quote, "This is how a lot of gunshot survivors describe the feeling. Not right when it happens, but a few minutes later, after the shock wears off. It's just an agonizing, inescapable burning."
It's wild, but survivors almost always report the same timeline for this kind of trauma. The initial impact? They say it feels like nothing more than a pebble hitting them. Then the body's emergency systems kick in, flooding you with adrenaline to mask the pain. It's only after that fades that the intense burning really starts. And even after the physical wound is long gone, the psychological scars can last a lifetime.
So we've gone from the spark of creation to the brink of survival, and now we've arrived at our final stop. This is the one experience every single one of us is guaranteed, but nobody can ever come back and tell us about it. We've reached the final question. What happens when it's all over?
From a purely scientific perspective, the body's last chapter is pretty straightforward, and, well, it's not exactly glamorous. The body cools down in what's called algor mortis. Then, because of gravity, the blood starts to pool. That's livor mortis. Then the muscles stiffen up in rigor mortis. And from there, bacteria take over, and the long, slow process of decomposition begins, until, years later, only a skeleton is left.
But for us humans, that's just never been the whole story, has it? We have this cold biological certainty on one hand, and on the other, our endless search for meaning. For centuries across every culture, we've imagined an afterlife. I mean, in the US alone, 72% of people believe in a heaven. It just shows how badly we need the story to keep going.
But then, you have this wild idea from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. It's called eternal recurrence, and it's a thought experiment. He asks, what if there's no heaven, no hell, no final rest? What if, the moment you die, you are instantly reborn into the exact same life to repeat every single moment, every joy, every heartbreak, every mistake, over and over forever? So that brings us to the ultimate question. After seeing this whole spectrum, from the ecstasy of creation to the agony of being shot, from a wild party to a lonely planet, would you do it all again, forever? Maybe that question, right there, is the real measure of a life well lived.